It's a good day to talk about dealing with objection because we just got every objection possible from technology. But where we could have gave up, and I wanted to quit. I knew we had people waiting, but I wanted to quit. Believe you me. But we figured it out. We had to bring Craig in. The computer wasn't working. He's across the country, but we brought him in on the cell phone. So we're going to go live on the cell phone. Craig, welcome to the show.
Yo, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, just center yourself out there a little bit.
Got some lavalier.
There you go. We had some problems today. I mean, it's a good time to talk about objections. Those that are watching, I think we are live on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, say hello to us in the chat box. Hello to everybody here on Facebook. And, you know, something lately, we got that. Craig knows I love Game of Thrones. House of Stark. Winter is coming.
Nice.
Winter is coming. That's the new story here, man. That's the new lingo. Winter is coming. What does that mean? It's go time. Fourth quarter. For me, it's winter time. It's New Jersey. So it is winter fucking time. And that's when it gets cold. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about objections because that's what you're going to be dealing with left and right. You're going to see them. We got people here on YouTube saying hello. Fourth quarter, Baby Miles, Spencer, Margot, Frank Cohn, Ray Kober, John Clay, Joey, Frank, Todd. What's up? Yeah, guys, it's around the corner, and I thought we should probably even do this on a quarterly basis because we just forget the answers sometimes. I was on a call with a broker last week that was getting challenges with the size of their firm. I was on a call with a broker yesterday that got challenges with, well, you know, I have no employees, and they were in, but I don't have any employees, so they concern them. And I said, hey, did you ever think of just lying and figuring out later? I mean, come on. Sometimes that's what you got to do. You're not doing nothing wrong. You fucking hire people later and figure it out. So we're going to teach you some ways that we deal with objections. And I don't think there's anybody better than Craig. The guy does 5 Zoom calls a day. He's got the best way to answer on objections. And again, may or may not be your style. Craig and me have very similar styles. You may have a different. You may have to say it a little nicer. You might have to finesse it. But Craig finesses it pretty well depending on his mood of the day. What do you say, Craig?
Yes, I can be quite erudite when called upon, but if it gets later in the day, I may not be terribly patient. So that's the name of that tune.
Yeah, and we did some research 5,000 years ago. You know, this mindset of being objected and objections, it was like almost equivalent to death. The feeling of objections was like death. To be excluded, right? Objected, excluded was like it was the pain of an injury, okay? And that's carried through with us. So think about when you're banging, you know, cold calls, right? And the feeling that you get of objection and the fear before it even you already talked yourself out of it. Like Craig said, we haven't had a software upgrade in how many years?
100,000 years.
100,000 years. So it's already built into your mindset that, you know, hey, it happens. So today we want to talk a little bit about objections, and Craig is really good on the fly, so feel free to put your objections below in the YouTube chat, in the Facebook chat. We'll try to answer them and come up with some interesting ideas for you. Ray Cobra says, what's up, John Clay? 5 Zoom calls, slacker. Yeah, between him, Paul Seeger, who I talked to today, it's just Zoom call after Zoom call, so don't let it fool you and say you can't talk to prospects. I've never seen that man on more calls than I have in the past 90 days. And guess what, guys?
Yeah.
People may not take action right this second, but at some point they're going to take action, and he's digging himself in now for later. So I put a post in the group that some of the questions or objections that you're getting, and Craig, if you want, I'll just go into them unless you have a list that you want to go through or start with. You tell me. But with that being said, today's show sponsor.
Hey, let's make it interactive. Get people to, you know, call in, give their 2 cents worth. Right. Some of these guys got some good old country boy ways of talking, like John Clay. We need to sneak some value out of him.
Yeah, so guys, let's hear your objections. Don't be afraid to say them on the chat here, okay? Because that's why you're listening. I know we're a little late here, but if you got interesting ways to answer them, put them in there as well. Today's show sponsor, Achieve Health Alliance, coming into the fourth quarter, guys. If you're tired of doing it on your own and figuring out those self-funded solutions, give us a call. We've got everything under one roof to help you out. Reach out to us on our website, schedule a call. Love to talk to you. That being said, Craig, I think the number one was, and I want to say one thing is there isn't always an answer to an objection. That doesn't mean you need to answer the objection. And Craig will probably cover that today. Is I love my broker, Craig. What do I do?
Oh my gosh, that's almost like the perfect tee up for anybody who's been paying attention to our phone calls, because what you're doing is, hey, you like your broker. That's fantastic. We appreciate loyalty in clients. Right? So, you're automatically disarming the bomb that's playing in every prospect's head, and that is, Jesus, I know somebody's going to have to be fired in order for me to talk to you guys and hire you guys. Sorry, man. Slippery phone. And so, you tell them, look, I like loyalty in a client. You tell them, hey.
Oh, yeah, it's objecting. The phone is objecting to you.
It has been a tech day like that for me. Just wanting to give me crap because it.
Sorry, guys. Bear with us here. We got more technology and we know what to do with, but it just doesn't cooperate.
Yeah.
Go ahead. That's
so,
better.
For those of you guys who are saying, hey, I'm not, you can tell them, look, you don't have to worry, right? What a conversation. You don't have to worry. I'm not here to replace your broker. I'm so glad that you're loyal because we respect that in our clients. And so you segue that into, you don't have to replace anybody you currently work with. What I'm here today is to talk to you about, and you're going to flip the script into a consulting fee. And you're going to explain your value proposition in terms of, hey, keep everything you currently have. That's okay. Implement whatever you want once you pay for objective advice. And then invariably in that process, many of you can speak to this already, that when you disarm them and you take all the tension out of the sales meeting, you take the tension out because you tell them, I'm not going to ask you to do anything as it pertains to changing your broker. And so once you've disarmed that, they tend to listen better. They'll be maybe a little more honest with you. If they're not, then that's your sign. And so you just go for the end around and sneak in the back door with the Trojan horse and say, whatever your normal pitch is for the consulting agreement. That's what I would do. I like my broker. Great. That's fantastic. If you want to engage them on that, why do you like them? Why do you like her? What do they do? How does that make you feel? How does that help the employees?
Yeah, and like what Craig's saying, it's not an answer to just, hey, that's the objection. It's not. That doesn't mean you just have to answer it and there's a guaranteed response that you can come up with that's going to change their mind. What he's saying is we're taking the bomb away a little bit, and that's interesting. That's what I hear from a lot of people, and that's great. Sometimes that makes our job a lot easier, and some of the things that we're able to do for our clients. It's interesting that you say that. Tell me a little bit more about that, because some of the strategies we use, we actually have to work in capacity with the incumbent broker. So the fact that you like them is probably going to be a good thing for some of the things that we talk about today. And oh, real? You can work with my broker? They don't even know what you're talking about yet. And again, diffuse the bomb, get them into conversation, get them to relax, get them to open up, and talk a little bit more, right? It's not just a slick sales line that Craig has a lot of in certain situations, but in certain situations you just can't go there. You just told you I love my husband. Well, he's a douchebag. What do you think going through their head after you say that? Right? And we're such suckers that we fall for this one every time. So much so that we don't even have the answer to it, Craig. And it was the number one objection brought up in the Facebook group that people checked off. because we still don't know how to answer it because we keep going back to our old ways of how do I get them out? How do I badmouth them, right? Without saying it, and that may not be the answer, right? Is
Yeah,
telling
you can't badmouth anybody in those meetings because that's a sure sign that nobody's going to hire you. And so ultimately, there's really two styles. So I know people who are just so warm and friendly and fuzzy all the time. That's their nature. I tend to be a little more clinical. Like John tends to be a little more clinical. He asks really pointed questions. And so you kind of can be one or the other or be a hybrid depending on the situation. So you just pick whatever style you like. And if somebody says, I like my broker, I don't consider that an objection at all. That's an introduction to a conversation. And then if you listen really well, they'll give you insights as to what they value. And you can ask them questions. Once you start engaging with them, you have permission, since you've taken all of the tension out of the sale, because what you're saying is, no, I'm not here for sale, right? I'm not here to get anybody fired. And then when they engage you, they start to know you and like you, and they'll answer more questions. And so if you're non-clinical, if you're clinical, you can say, great, and you can get to, how much were your last 3 years renewals, and, you can be much more unemotional. And then if you want to be, friends and family, because that's your style, that's cool. But then you go down that route and you go, really, that's fascinating. I don't often hear that. So what exactly is it about the broker that you like? What do they do is it something they do? Is it something they say? And what kind of person are you? Do you like to read it? Do you like to watch a video? Do you like to listen to it? And pretty soon you're just engaging with them. You're having a conversation and you can segue that anywhere you want. They've forgotten that they took a meeting with a health insurance broker that normally means it's going to be very stressful, and they're going to figure out a way to get you out the door.
And another one is somebody said my mic was peaking, so I'm going to check it here. I have a newer setup, but another one is and I'm just coming up with ideas off the top of my head. You love your broker. Well, that's great. Tell me about what it is that he does, because I'd love to have my clients say this thing when somebody comes in to take my business, right? And you get them a laugh.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd love to have a client say the same thing. Tell me what it is that he does so great. And again, you may know within the first few minutes that it's a waste of time, and that's okay. I think I talked to somebody yesterday. Those that don't know want to chat with us. We're doing some calls to help you guys. We couldn't do the event. Just an update. We're still waiting on a new date. We're looking at January and February, so those that missed out can maybe look at February. But lost my train of thought. But we'll go to the next one, Craig.
Go to the next one. Yeah, that's not an objection. That's just that's a fun way to have a conversation.
Yeah, it's either maybe we went too long for that one. But sometimes you just got to pick up and get the hell out. Is what I was trying to say. Is use your experience, guys. A lot of you experience. You got business. Pick your ass up. Get out of the meeting. You already know, and already in the back of my head, it's like a bad date, right? I always look at this as dating. When you go on a date and she looks really good in the pictures, and then you go on a date and she doesn't look so good, and now what are you doing? You're thinking of ways on how the hell you're going to get out of the meeting while she's talking. You're asking questions and you're laughing, but in the back of your head, you're figuring out how to get out of there. So you might have some backup. You might want some backups instead of objecting to it and figuring out what things am I going to say or ask after that can get me the hell out of this meeting too fast because I'm wasting my time. Let's move on. What do you think, Craig? You like that one?
I like that one a lot, man, because personally, I can't even remember that far back because I would have been 16 years old before I could even remember experience like that. Because when I was 17, I told the woman that I married I was going to marry her, and that was it. 40 years ago, boom, bang, boom.
Poor guy.
Lucky guy.
Hey, Craig, we just renewed. Now, is that a question? That could be something that they say on the phone. That could be if they're saying something like that in a meeting.
It's usually because it works. Remember, all of these silly statements are because it works on 99% of your competitors. So don't fall for it. You've heard me say many times that I think customers are better salespeople than the brokers, because most brokers, they go, oh, we just renewed. Oh, okay. Well, can I call you 90 days before next year's renewal? I mean, come on. That's been the same model for 30 years. It's dead. It's a dead business model. So you just engage them and go, oh, well, then this is a perfect time. Man, how stressful was open enrollment this year? Did you do meetings? Remember back in the day when everybody used to do live meetings, and now, I mean, how'd you do them? Right? Did you do a Zoom call? Did you do a webinar, a conference call? And you just chat with them. Take away all the sales pressure that they're assuming they're going to feel and engage them in just a conversation between two people. When the opportunity strikes, you segue the conversation into what you really want to talk about ultimately. It gets there, it doesn't get there. You at least build some rapport,
And
and you
you're
do a
collecting data, right? You're collecting
yeah.
information. Is oh great? Tell me about what did you end up doing for renewal? Did you get a big increase? Yeah, you did. What did
Hey,
you
how
end
many
up
people
doing?
waved? I hear a lot of people are
Yeah.
waving now, right now. How many people signed up? A lot of people are unemployed. Did you see a lot of spouses jump onto the plan? And then always finish with bam fam, right? Book a meeting from a meeting and go, well, hey, let's let a few weeks settle by, take all the pressure off open enrollment, and then let's revisit. How does that sound? Does that sound like would be good for you? Yeah, just you're just talking. Take away the pressure. Nobody's making a decision
You're not
today.
making a sale today. Don't be desperate. Don't have broker breath.
Oh my God, the
Collect some because
desperation that comes out of
you
the
may
mouth.
book try to book and call them next year when in reality it's a complete waste of time. Their nephew, their cousin, or somebody else does it. If you get them
Yeah.
talking and you can get some more information, you just jot it down in the notes. Again, this is the long play here. We just renewed in a meeting. I don't anticipate that happening that often. Then I'd be well. Why'd you take the meeting, right? So, uh, yeah, I think that was one. Other priorities. We have other business initiatives, things of that nature. Craig, what do you say to that one?
Well, usually that comes up far later in the sales cycle. Yeah, see, after all that, my phone's going to die. We come in
You
far
better
later in the sales cycle when they
better
say,
plug that.
we,
You better plug that in while we're on. Take your time, because
yeah,
that puppy's gonna die live.
yeah, I'll unplug my microphone and plug it in after you switch cameras after this. Yeah, we don't have enough runway. We have other initiatives. That's usually, code for I don't want to make a decision on this right now. So you have to dig in deep. And so I run into that all the time with major size companies, right? They're like, well, we can only do one initiative this year. And so I just recently had a conversation where the guy has 100 hospitals, right? It's a very major, large healthcare budget. And he's like, I'm putting in a vendor that I used at my last job. And I know it's going to take a lot for us to get that done. And I said, well, let's talk about that. I know that vendor. And I said, they're going to have to make a lot of assumptions for you to determine what your measurable ROI is. They're going to assume that so many of your employees are going to engage, and then they'll engage with this function, and that has the potential to lower your claims because they'll steer them either to a less expensive option or avoid the surgery, what have you. Consider it, basically sophisticated case management for big companies. And I said, so their whole model is based on assumptions. Now let's contrast that for a moment. Based on the enrollment we have, I'm going to probably have 25,000 EOBs from your employees and their dependents next year on claims that you didn't pay. And I can draw a straight line to the $5 million of expected savings versus had they remained on your plan. No assumptions, no assertions, no utilization exam. That's bare minimum. I said, so if you compare the value of that initiative versus our initiative, how is it that you conclude that you could afford to overspend by 5 million next year while you're paying 4 million for this new initiative? It could be free if you just installed our program. And so you have to determine when that comment comes in place and how it relates to the value proposition you've been providing, because it's usually a red herring, like most HR people. I don't want to do any work. That's their code speak for it. We're putting in a new payroll system. Really? You could, if you're feeling prickly, like I do sometimes, you go, so let's set the initiative aside for a minute. We're going to just put it up here on the shelf. If the CFO was in the meeting right now, and I said that without changing any of your healthcare budget or vendors, you could bolt on a solution that would create $5 million of earnings for the company out of the healthcare budget that you waste on profits, that you burn through in claims this year. What do you suppose the CFO would say? And so you can determine, how in your face you want to get with them or not. But you have to hold them accountable to defend, I can only do one initiative. And does the initiative cost money or make you money? Can you prove it, or is it a guesstimate, right? How long will it take? How much bandwidth is it going to consume? Is there an administrative load? Is there going to be a lot of noise from the employees? Is there going to be a lot of disruption? Can you easily install it nationwide across your 32 facilities? And so you get them to think about stuff. I've talked to many prospects about RBP, and honestly, I have nothing to do with that. And so I'm just trying to add value in the conversation and then segue it into why I think they could have two initiatives. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't.
Got it. Gotta pop that charger in before we lose you here. I look at sometimes objections, and not particularly this one, as just a wall or a hurdle to go around. And I used to hear my old cold caller who was an expert at it, and he would just talk around the objections, because sometimes there's just noise in the back of their head, and they're just looking for an excuse. And it really isn't an objection. It's just instant psychology of, let me mute you, psychology of, well, I got to talk to my wife. I got to talk to my partner. I got to this. I got to that. They're already sitting. The mind's already going to say it right away. Okay. One of my better accounts, I remember telemarketing, and I think it might have been 3 or 4 objections that I had to go through with her. So we had 4 objections to go through until she said, you know what? Maybe we should look at this self-funding thing. So sometimes you got to talk around it, or just almost completely ignore it. I hear what you're saying. Let me say this. It might sound a little boiler roomish, but you'd be surprised how much it works and gets them off the topic of what they may have just said to you. So give that one a shout. Let's take a look here in the comments to see if we have anybody on here that has some questions. Frank Cohn says, we get rebates today with Blue Cross. We're concerned about formulary disruption too. Went to Magellan last year, blah, blah, blah. Really, what type of rebates are you getting? And how much are those rebates? And they give you credits for those rebates. How many credits did they give you? Oh, $100,000. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Employer. What do you think the odds are that the money they make on the rebates is more than $100,000? You think it's more? I don't think I've ever had a situation where we said that and they haven't laughed, right? So I think that one's an easy objection. Everybody knows about rebates now. Kids know about pharmacy rebates. Yeah. So you think the pharmaceutical
That's 10 years old, everybody.
Yeah, the pharmaceutical company hasn't figured out a way to hide the money in the other 35 buckets of revenue, because the reality is they now market that they're going to give you rebates. Do you think they're doing that to be nice, or they found another place to put the bucket of money? Second part of that question.
That's such a silly objection. But you have to nuance it, right? So you go, well, how confident are you that you're getting all the money? Right? It's like John said, it's another way of asking, do you suppose that the PBM's making more than $100,000? That's why you're getting it. Do you think that they're feeling pressure from the government and the White House and executive orders constantly saying we need more transparency, we need more transparency? You think there's a reason that they didn't buy a health insurance company? Think about this for a moment, Prospect. They own the supply chain and they control demand. The insurance company determines demand and they own the supply of all the prescriptions. Are you kidding me? Let's do this. Let's do a pilot. Get all this claims data that you think you're getting, right? And let us do an analysis. And then you'll know for sure, because we're confident that you're overpaying and we think we can prove it. Whatever your story is. Yeah, pharmacy's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, saying it was formulary disruption. Yeah, I don't know that in depth on what exactly they did, but the reality is let me ask you a question. All those employees, are they getting $0 medications for names?
Every 6 months the formulary changes on every plan in America. Every 6 months. What do you mean formulary disruption? It's built into the system. Let's Shed some light on that so I understand. What do you mean when you say formulary disruption? Because it changes every 6 months with every carrier out there. They publish a new list, dropping on, dropping off, and now you just got them to engage, and you'll probably be able to hear crickets, because what they probably did was give you the only thing that sounded smart to them to say, because most of them aren't that bright. They have a few talking points, and once you query them on the talking point, they're out of ammo. And so, trust me, 9 out of 10 times at least, you're going to find them, wanting.
Yeah, Zach says, just ask them. Really, Humira, I'm sure that gets filled on. What type of rebate do you get for that? They'll never know. But again, Frank, if you're talking to the HR person here who says the disruption is not worth the savings, then you're talking to the wrong person. Talking to an HR person about pharmacy formularies or what have you, it's probably not where you want to have the conversation about savings, because they don't care about savings. She just said it. The savings isn't worth any disruption. So if you can't get leadership buy-in, you're FUCK.
Right.
So
you guys sell paper plates, right? Which means you gotta go. Your supply chain VP has to go to a paper vendor. And do you suppose that the words would ever come out of their mouth that the disruption is not worth getting a cheaper price on paper?
it's lovely.
Yeah, you just have to. I like converting stories into business, because then they're always going to be found wanting. You have very few strategic HR executives or officers, and you sure don't in the small mid-group market.
Here's one. We changed plans last year. I always like that one when they say they've made changes, because what do I want to do? I want to figure out what went into them making those changes. So talk to me about that. What was the reasoning why you made a change? It's like when they said, I changed brokers 2 years ago. Really? What made you do that? And
I'm curious. It's a great softball. I'm curious what went into making that decision. It must have been really hard. I've looked at your 5,500, and it appears actually that prior to that change, you had the same broker forever. How hard was it? Right? See, I'm not being clinical. I'm being more, warm and touchy. So how tough was it for you to make that decision to fire someone? I imagine they probably became your friend after all that period. And let them tell you how to sell them. Because in the process of asking really good questions, they'll tell you what's important to them and how they make decisions. And that's what you need to know before you start pitching.
And how they make decision, who makes the decision? Is that a decision that you probably ended up making that decision in the end? Or no, oh no, it wasn't you? Oh, who made that? Now we already know who the decision maker is and who it has to go through. Okay, Bob and so, who's the son of the owner and his VP.
Have fun with it. Yeah. Here's how you have fun with it. Who's the hippo involved in that situation? They go, hippo? Oh, you're not familiar with that term. Well, that's business terminology, maybe with larger companies. But who's the highest paid person's opinion that made the decision? And now you get them to just, cutely tell you, oh, well, that was the controller, the CFO, the CEO, golfing buddy, whatever. Yeah. So there's just, lots of ways. That's a great one, because it leads to so many different avenues of conversation of, simple guys. It's just a conversation. Remember, it's not a pitch. A pitch implies that you already know what they need. And so it doesn't matter what they say. It's like one of our clients, the 5th largest sports brand in the world, told us one year, oh, yeah, Mercer, it doesn't matter what comes out of my mouth. Oh, you need a high deductible health plan with an HSA. He goes, you know how tired I am of hearing that? I call you guys when I want to get objective advice. Okay. That's the story. See, when you show up to a meeting and you already know what they need, it's hard to listen and it's hard to come up with good questions. So just change the perception that you have and say, look, I'm just going to have a conversation with these people. See if it's somebody that I might want to do business with. See if I can get them to share and be vulnerable, be emotional, tell me something meaningful. And if you can, then, you got a good shot there. But just look at these things as ways to have a conversation. And how likely is it that you'll change again?
Yeah, it's all about
what would have to happen.
You're hearing all night, and you're probably thinking, "Well, I thought it was going to be something slick that Craig said," and it's just we're asking questions. It's like this simple trick they play, like in Jordan Belfort. is sell me this pen. Well, everybody thinks, well, it's a great pen and it's high quality. It's like it's not. It's a trick, right? You're going into a pitch without even knowing anything about the buyer. So the answer is to that trick is basically you've got to ask them questions. Are you in the market for a pen right now? Right. So that's what happens with a lot of these objections. Instead of thinking of punching them in the mouth, which I tend to do it, still do it because I can't help myself, right? So, and especially if a meeting goes somewhere and you already know, like we talked about that, you're not going to get the client, and sometimes you just want to jab a little bit and punch it, use them as a punching bag. I've done that many times, but for wasting my time, so I kind of pay them back and let them know that when I leave that they are an idiot and whatever. So, yeah. Somebody had wrote on here, can you get Blue Cross Blue cheaper for me, Craig?
Wow, I would probably say, if I was in your position, I'd already know what they sell. So you sell ball bearings. So let me ask you a simple question. Before I answer that, let me ask you a simple question. This company sells ball bearings. Can I buy ball bearings cheaper somewhere else than from, ABC company? So just put it back on them to answer a ridiculous question as it relates to their very own business, because that's what allows them to make a living, to pay the mortgage, to pay the auto payment, to pay the school tuition, to pay for the kids' lacrosse equipment, and on and on. Shouldn't they know something about it? So put the onus back on them, right? And they go, yeah, I know. That's probably like a question your first week on the job they ask you, well, just ask them this, right? But I can see you've been on the job a long time, so we both know that's not a serious question.
Yeah, that's just a slap. And again, why do you ask that? Is it that people use Blue Cross? They all want Blue Cross, yeah. So why would you even consider leaving Blue Cross then? Well, because healthcare is expensive. So it keeps going up and up and up. Don't you think that Blue Cross knows that? So are we in agreement that if you want to keep that from happening, you're going to have to leave Blue Cross?
Yeah, look, if you want to be old school, you go, well, if I could get you Blue Cross cheaper, can we do business together? that would be the old ways. 277 ways to overcome objections. What's it going to take for me to put you in this car today, John?
Yeah. Flip it around on them. Another one was who are your other clients, Craig?
Huh. Well, I assume by that question that you imply some sort of credibility if I have a client list as long as my arm and you recognize all their logos. In fact, that's the reason why a lot of people hire the big name national firms, who, by the way, most of which are an accumulation of hundreds and hundreds of acquisitions of firms just like me. Yesterday they were me, and tomorrow they have this client list. So I would tell you this. I have the experience. Who are our clients is irrelevant. We have the experience in doing this and this and this and this. Those are the things that you just talked to them about, right? And so rather than having a name where you assume it means something, and in fact, that person may have never done any of these things because they were just a standard broker who connected sellers of stuff with buyers of stuff, and they happened to get acquired by the big national brand, and you make assumptions that aren't reality. What's important for you to know is when I talk about RBP, I've done it. When I talk about bundled pricing, I've done it. When I talk about a PBM, I've done it. DPC, all the stuff. And you just flip the script and you give them only what they need to know. And the fact is, I have the experience doing it. And the result of that for your organization would be boom, 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 boom. Yeah, you don't have to answer any question directly.
Yeah, I think if they're looking for big names and they're not a big name, if they're a big name they're looking for, if they're not a big name, and say those aren't the companies that I work for. Obviously, your company might try to do business with those, and I'm sure there's a lot of red tape. But what we are an expert in is working with firms like yours. For instance, you're in the manufacturing industry. We have XYZ client. You're familiar with them. We have this client. Are you familiar with them? Are you familiar with this one? And I just start naming names that are around their area that do have some brand recognition. If you don't have any clients,
Yeah.
that may not work, but you need to talk around the fact that they're looking for this big name, especially when they're not a big deal of a company. And
The other reason
you
is,
could mention companies' names and go, you ever hear of them? Oh, really? You never heard of them? That's one of the largest companies in the world. So if I mention a name that was you never heard of, does it really even matter? But let's focus on really what matters is fixing your problems. And based on your research, I'm sure that you did on me in advance in the shock and awe package I sent you, you know that I get the job done, and that's why I'm here today.
yeah, and what do you suppose the likelihood is that your 87-man group, compared to the client list that they showed you of Fortune 500 companies, do you are you under the illusion that the A-list consultants are working on an 87-man group? That's not true. No, you're probably the C and D list trainees, because an 87-man group is not even budget dust to a national firm that does billions in revenue.
What I have to
In
what
contrast to that, you're getting the A list, you're getting the A team with our firm. You are our A list client. You're the D list client of a national brand, and you need to recognize the gap in the outcomes that are produced by a D player and an A player.
it's do you want to be a big fish in a smaller pond, or you want to be the small fish in a big pond? Because a group of your size that's 1,000 lives, that TP that you work at works at groups 10,000 or more. So you're a nobody
Yeah.
while you think you're big. Basically, you're a nobody. So
You're
where do you want?
irrelevant.
Yeah, where do you want to be?
Yeah.
I had another thought and I lost that thought because I'm running the tech here behind the show. What's up, Mike
How
Patton?
many employees do you have?
Oh
Sometimes.
yeah, well, how many employees do you have? And hey, listen, at the end of the day, sometimes you got to fudge it a little bit when you're first starting off. Um, oh, this is what I wanted to say. So this pertains to what clients and how many employees do you have, especially HR, especially a woman. And I'm not being sexist. Let me tell you why. Okay, we're gonna do an episode on this, and the reason that the HR people love the big house name. Shout out to you, those that are watching are in a big house. God bless you. You have your advantages and your disadvantages. But the reality is, if you look at human psychology and you read a book, great book, it is, I think it's Dr. David Buss, The Evolution of Desire, okay? And what you'll see that's been studied in psychology through every species, from insects to elephants to tigers to humans, every age class, every person, whether they were single then divorced, married not divorced, so on and so forth, is that the female likes bigger, likes the taller guy, the bigger guy. Why? Because in back in the day, a bigger guy could do what? It was presumed that a bigger guy can protect me from these other men that are going to try to come after me and mate with me, right? It's evolution of desire. It was all about mating. So they want to mate with somebody that's bigger because he can protect me. Not only that, what can he protect? He can protect my kids, right? So there's this psychological thing that's going on that you don't even realize, that it's safer. The bigger guy can go out and hunt and do a better job hunting. They would see what men came back, or animals that they would study, or insects that would come back. There's certain insects, Craigs, that would go out and hunt and get all these things back and put them on a spike out in front of them all to show off to the women that, hey, I can provide for you if you mate with me, right? And that really applies to human psychology, and the fact that when you're dealing with an HR person, it's just, again, in our brain, the psychology that says bigger is safer. So keep that in mind, guys. That may be what you're dealing with the question. So, you like that one, Craig?
I do. I like that. That's part of the. We haven't had a software upgrade in 100,000 years. Caveman times. Yeah, there's just so many ways, to respond to so many things. Some of it is a function of what you have at your disposal. If you have great stories, how many employees do you have? Think of it like a politician. If any of you have been around long enough to understand, politicians, the good ones, they never answer a single question. Usually they repeat it, even on the debates on television, and then they go into their agenda. of all the talking points that they want to cover, and they never answer the question. You can do the same thing in a meeting, and you can use it to tell a story. You go, well, it's an interesting question. How many employees? Let me tell you a story about a case. It reminds me of your group, right? And the opportunity was, and they thought they could get Blue Cross cheaper. Then they realized they didn't even need a network. And we discovered that we had a direct contract and we could do that. And all of a sudden, they don't even remember what the hell the question was, but damn, your story is intriguing and it makes me want to know more about you. So you look for opportunities to use that at your advantage. Hopefully it's client stories. And so you just ignore their silly questions. I get them all the time. Lots of silly questions. I just did a phone call with a guy yesterday. And today they asked for reference calls. And of course, any of you who watch, my video on no is a complete sentence. I had to write an articulate message as to why that is completely inappropriate and premature. Whereas to them, it was the first thing on the list. To us and our clients, it's the last thing on the list because they're only a suspect. We don't even know if they're genuinely interested, and they haven't done any due diligence yet. So if and when they can do the due diligence, if they think it's a fit, and they've done everything they need to do, the last thing on their list, silly request, talk to a complete stranger as a reference call, a leftover from the 20th century, then we'll set up a phone call. But until you've done all the due diligence and we know that you're a serious buyer, that's not going to happen. So you just have to be willing to engage people as a peer and not a supplicant. Hey, son, John, go fetch me a rock. Can you get me another quote on that? Oh, can you make an adjustment to this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can you show me that? Don't fetch rocks. Don't be desperate.
I like it. What other objections we got? Any other you want to cover before we jump here? We did go. Well, yeah, we're a little over on time here, but
time flew by. Yeah.
Time flew by. I think it's an easy one. Hopefully, you guys got some ideas. If you got some side ones, email us. We'll jump on a call with you. But I think the message here on objections is questions, deflect it, because sometimes an objection is just that wall that you just really have to walk around. It's not set in stone that you can't get over the wall. You just gotta talk around it sometimes. I hear what you're saying. Let me say this. So I'm agreeing with your point, but let me say this.
Yeah.
And
like COVID. Look at what
trick.
People are doing for COVID. 75% of people are saying, "Oh, COVID's the reason we can't do anything because of COVID." That is a load of horseshit that most brokers are buying. Now, honestly, most brokers are only managing a lifestyle. They're not really interested in growing their book. So they go, yeah, I agree. Okay. I wanted to go home early. So, but 25, 30% of the brokers are kicking ass right now. They're writing business because it's so easy to get in front of any particular prospect via the phone call because there's no screeners if they're not at work. Okay. We've told you these guys a million times. There's a few guys that we work with that are just crushing it out there. It's available to everybody, but most people don't want to work, so they say use COVID. It's just an objection that works on most people. Remember, all of these silly red herring objections are nothing more than a tool to get you off the phone or get you out of the meeting and get you out of their hair. So you just have to learn to deflect that, ignore it, repurpose it, reframe it, restate it, and get it back on.
We only go to market every 2 years. Really, why is that? Why is it you do that? Let them explain to you.
How long have you been doing that? Yeah. What kind of rate increases have you been getting? Do you still think it's effective?
So it's not based on your rate increase. If you got a 30% rate increase, you're gonna wait till next year. Is that what you're saying, or is it based on, just is this set in stone or what?
I've been getting one recently. where the prospect says, "Oh, our employees haven't had a rate increase in 5 years." I said, "Wow, that sounds great, but that doesn't mean you haven't had a rate increase, does it?" "Well, no." I said, "So you've made a business decision to absorb all the rate increase so the employees would have no premium contribution increase. Is that correct?" "Yeah." You see, so unless you ask, it might sound great. You'd be like, "Shit, I can't do anything for these guys. They haven't had a rate increase." So don't assume that. They're framing things. They're stating things. When I ask people for the PEPY, some of the more sophisticated CFOs give me the net number, net of employee contributions. I'm like, no, you don't have a $7,000 PEPY. That would be very unusual considering the national average is 12 to 15,000 for a hospital. So, you just have to be prepared to dance.
Dan says, same gentleman, we signed a contract with our broker. Great. Um, so tell me a little about what the broker's doing. So it sounds, based on what you tell me, it sounds like your broker is managing benefits. Well, there's actually two components to healthcare, and there's a consulting side and a benefits management side. Look at it this way. You have a CPA, right, Bob? He files your taxes every year. But if you were going to make another $500,000 this year, you'd want to figure out how to save more money in taxes, right? Now, you probably wouldn't go to your accountant that you talk to once a year who files taxes. You'd probably want to look for a tax strategist or a tax attorney that they do this full time. Would that make sense, right? So let's look at it that way. I believe you have somebody that's going to be managing your benefits for the next year, and we actually work with several employers that have a broker in place that are particularly really good at managing the benefits, the enrollments, the changes, the paperwork, all that good fun stuff. But where they're really lacking is on the spend side, which you had mentioned earlier, on those increases that you had and the costs you've been shifting off to your employees. So based on everything you told me, I think it sounds like a project around that specifically would probably fit what you're looking for versus anything from the management side. Would you agree with that? Right? It's just going back to where is their pain and offer. Well, I can hire you and keep them, right? So they don't know that they can do that. They have no idea. You didn't know.
They don't really.
You just
really
found
don't
out.
know.
Okay, and go talk to Paul Seeger, who's absolutely killing it and closed 2 new accounts again this week. Put him with the chief out the line. Shout out to Paul. But he's laughing because it's been so easy, and this strategy has destroyed it for him. I said,
Wait, he closed business in other states. He's not even there.
In Oklahoma for other brokers over the phone. He's doing it for them. Okay, so you can't make the excuse that's not being done. You just, like he would say, is you're not talking to enough people. I said people are going to accuse him either of lying or cheating soon when we keep telling these stories about him. But he brought up a good point today that a CFO said to him, and it was in an article he's going to send to me, is that what a better time than now to take a risk. It's COVID. Well, this is an excuse to make a change because, companies are going through a tough thing. When the economy was good for 3 years, they didn't have to make a change. Why the fuck would I risk losing my job by making a big change? The company's doing good. Who cares? I'm thinking about me. But right now, times are tough. Desperate times calls for desperate measures. So I can get away with a big change right now. Okay?
I got cover.
Yeah.
I got cover to make a change that I could ignore. Quick story. Ray Kober and I working on a really nice case. I think we talked to him in January. No, life is grand. We don't think that's an initiative that we want to pursue. Ray was smart enough to follow up with him a couple of months ago, and OMG, because of COVID, we have to look at anything that's an option. And next week we're talking to a whole, C-suite team on, let's take a really deep dive and maybe consider doing this for 1/1. Are you kidding me? It was dead. They ignored us.
Follow up? What's
Look
that?
what happened in 6 months.
What is that follow-up?
What's the follow-up?
Yeah. No. What is a follow-up? Oh, you're supposed to call the people back that said no earlier?
Oh, yeah. Dead only means delayed. It doesn't mean you're being denied. So if you don't follow up, you'll never find out.
And we're going to wrap it here, but right now is like, I tell my brother, I was like, the shift in the market, slow down stuff, be great for me to actually take a vacation, go travel and this and that, and use maybe some of this time. But the reality is we can't even do that. So what else? What the hell else are you doing? Losing your mind? What else do you have to do but, prospect and go follow up with people before and try to get things going? Because, again, think of a sales cycle. We'll end it with this. The sales cycle is 90, 120 days, 180 days. Some of them are, 360 days, depending on the size of the group and what you're selling them. So if you stop the cycle now, it affects you when? Whenever your sales cycle is. If it's 120, well, in 120 days, you're going to have shit coming in because you didn't do anything now. So you just got to keep marketing. I've had to keep telling myself every day where I've wanted to turn it off and stop the money, but we're just going to keep at it. I hope you keep at it. We hope this was helpful. Thanks for joining us. If you're listening on the podcast, check us out on YouTube and in the private Facebook group. What's up to you guys out on YouTube? See a couple people joining. Same week, next week, same place, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Thanks for joining us, guys. Heads Up Advisor. Take care.